Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we think the loudest voice in the room has all the power. But let me tell you something. There is a dangerous kind of strength in silence that nobody talks about. It's the strength that doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need applause, doesn't need validation. It just is. When you choose to be silent, you're not surrendering. You're studying. You're observing. You're gathering all the facts while the world is too busy making noise to notice the truth. And in that quiet space, you find clarity. You find purpose. You find the conviction to stand up when the time is right. People will underestimate you because you don't react, because you don't explain yourself, because you're not trying to prove them wrong. But the most dangerous person is the one who doesn't flinch when they're doubted. The one who can sit in stillness and let the noise burn itself out. When your silence finally gives way to action, when you speak, when you move, silence is not weakness. It's a powerful choice that commands respect. In a world that often mistakes volume for strength and noise for authority, the decision to remain silent is one of the most powerful, intentional acts a person can make. When you choose silence, you are not giving up your power. You are demonstrating mastery over it. You are showing that you don't need to fill the air with words to prove your worth, your knowledge, or your capability. Instead, you let your presence, your composure, and your actions speak volume. There's a strength in not rushing to respond and not letting emotions drive immediate reactions and holding back and observing while others expose their intentions and weaknesses through careless speech. Silence forces the world to lean in, to pay attention, to wonder what you're thinking. And that right there is the power. The loudest person in the room may command attention for a moment, but the one who chooses silence controls the room. People respect what they can't predict, and nothing is more unpredictable than someone who listens carefully, watches keenly, and speaks only when it truly matters. The person who can remain silent under pressure, who doesn't flinch in the face of provocation, earns a respect that shouting could never achieve. When you are silent, you are in control of yourself, and that self-control is the foundation of all true strength. Silence is also a form of discipline. It takes restraint to hold your tongue when you have something to say. It takes inner strength to choose your words carefully, to resist the temptation to fill uncomfortable pauses with meaningless chatter. It is easy to react, easy to argue, easy to defend yourself with words, but silence demands that you rise above the need for constant justification. It demands patience. It demands courage. Because to be silent is to trust that you do not have to prove yourself to anyone in that moment. You know who you are, and that's enough. There's another reason why silence commands respect. It shows that you are confident. When you remain silent, especially in difficult situations, you signal that you are not desperate for approval or recognition. You don't need to be heard at every opportunity because you know your value is not tied to how loudly you speak or how often. Silence reflects the quiet confidence of someone who understands their power. It is the posture of a leader, of someone who doesn't need to dominate conversations to dominate the space. People respect confidence, and there's no greater sign of confidence than being able to stay calm and silent when everyone else is scrambling for attention. Moreover, silence gives you the advantage of listening. Truly listening is one of the most powerful things you can do. When you are silent, you can hear beyond words. You can pick up on the things people don't say, the things they're trying to hide. You can observe body language, tone, the small details that people reveal when they assume no one's paying close attention. This gives you knowledge, and knowledge is power. While others are too busy speaking to hear what's really going on, your silence allows you to gather information, to understand situations more deeply, and to respond with precision when the time is right. When you choose silence, you take away the weapons others might use against you. Words can be twisted, misinterpreted, used to provoke or trap you. But silence leaves nothing for them to grab onto. It frustrates those who try to control or manipulate you with arguments because you give them nothing to work with. It disarms those who expect you to react. It keeps you grounded while they reveal their own flaws and insecurities through their noise. There is a dangerous kind of strength in a person who doesn't react out of emotion, who doesn't let others pull them into unnecessary conflict. That kind of strength is unshakable. Silence is also a teacher. It teaches patience because in silence you learn to wait for the right moment. It teaches humility because you accept that you don't always need to have the last word. It teaches wisdom because you learn to choose your words with care, to speak only when you have something worth saying. The world is full of voices shouting to be heard, but the one who speaks rarely and with purpose is the one people listen to when it matters. When you choose silence, you are choosing to add value to your words. You are saying, when I speak, it will mean something. And that gives your words a weight that constant talking can never achieve. Another reason silence is powerful is because it allows space for reflection. When you are silent, you can think clearly. You can process your thoughts, your emotions, your surroundings. You can plan. You can decide the best course of action without the pressure of filling the silence with noise. This reflective power of silence allows you to act deliberately rather than react impulsively. And when your actions are deliberate, they are more effective, more respected, and more impactful. Silence gives you time to choose strength over weakness, wisdom over foolishness, peace over conflict. People respect those who can stay silent in moments of chaos, because silence in those moments shows that you are not controlled by external circumstances. It shows that you have inner peace, that you are not shaken by what is happening around you. The world respects strength that comes from within because it is rare. Most people are quick to anger, quick to defend, quick to speak. The person who can pause, who can hold back, who can choose silence in the heat of the moment, that is the person who commands true respect. There is also a mysterious quality to silence. People are drawn to mystery because they can't figure it out. And what they can't figure out, they often admire or fear. When you are silent, you make people curious. You make them wonder what you're thinking, what you know, what you're planning. That curiosity gives you power. It gives you influence without effort. The less you say, the more people want to hear what you will say. And when you finally do speak, your words carry more meaning, more authority, because they are rare and deliberate. Silence is not about avoiding conflict or hiding from challenges. It is about choosing when and how to engage. It is about refusing to let others dictate your response. It is about holding your power close, not throwing it away carelessly in every conversation. People who respect themselves enough to be silent when it counts are the ones who are respected by others, because they show that they are not at the mercy of the world's noise. They are not pushed around by other people's demands for attention or reaction. They stand firm. They listen. They wait. And when they move with purpose, the decision to be silent is a decision to lead from within. It is the choice of the strong, the wise, the confident. It is never weakness. It is strength in its purest form, because it means you have nothing to prove. You don't seek validation through noise. You let your silence do the talking, and in doing so, you command a respect that words alone could never earn. A silent person often sees and understands more than anyone realizes. While the world celebrates those who are outspoken and constantly sharing their thoughts, there is an unseen wisdom in those who choose to remain quiet. They are the ones paying attention, storing information, and connecting patterns that others miss. Their silence is not the result of ignorance or lack of ideas. It is the sign of a mind working in ways most people never notice. When you watch someone who doesn't speak much, you might assume they are detached or disinterested, but often they are the ones most attuned to what is happening. They are absorbing every detail, the way someone's voice trembles when they lie, the way a person's eyes shift when they feel guilty, the subtle tension in a room that everyone else ignores. Silence creates space to observe without distraction. It allows a person to gather the raw truth that hides beneath the noise. Words can distract. They can distort perception, but silence sharpens it. A silent person does not feel compelled to respond to every word thrown at them, so they can focus on what matters, the deeper meaning behind what is said, the emotion behind the tone, the motive behind the behavior. People who are constantly talking often hear only enough to prepare their reply. They are so busy crafting the next sentence that they miss what is actually happening in front of them. A silent person has no such agenda. They are listening to understand, not just to answer. They have the patience to let people reveal themselves fully, to let conversations unfold without interference. In that patience, they discover insights that slip past everyone else. They notice contradictions. They sense when someone is hiding something. They pick up on the small details that paint the bigger picture. Silence is like a lens that brings everything into clearer focus. While others are distracted by their own thoughts and opinions, the silent person is taking in the environment as it is. They see the truth that hides behind the facade. They understand the dynamics between people, the hidden alliances, the unspoken resentments, the quiet struggles that shape behavior. This awareness gives them an edge, because when you truly see what others cannot, you can navigate situations with a level of understanding that feels almost intuitive. Anja, you can predict outcomes. You can make wiser decisions. You can act with intention instead of reacting out of confusion. A silent person often understands more because they are comfortable with discomfort. Many people speak just to fill the empty space, to avoid the anxiety that silence can create. But those who embrace quiet are not afraid of what might surface in that space. They are willing to sit with uncertainty, to let their mind process all the information without rushing to conclusions. This allows them to gain clarity before they speak or act. They don't need to guess or assume because they've taken the time to see things as they are. Their silence is like fertile ground where insight grows. When a silent person finally does speak, their words often carry weight because they are built on a foundation of careful observation and understanding. People notice when someone who rarely talks has something to say. They listen more closely. They take the message more seriously. So this is why the silent person can have more influence with fewer words. Their contributions are precise, thoughtful, and often reveal truths that others overlooked. This ability to distill what matters from what doesn't is one of the most valuable skills a person can have. It is a direct result of their willingness to remain silent and watch when everyone else is busy performing. Silence also allows a person to understand themselves more deeply. When you are constantly talking, you are often performing for others, proving something, maintaining an image. But when you are silent, you are left alone with your own thoughts. You can reflect honestly on your motives, your fears, your hopes. You can see where your ego tries to take over and where your true self wants to emerge. This self-awareness is another reason silent people often understand more. They are not just experts at reading the world around them. They are skilled at reading themselves. And when you understand yourself, you are less likely to be manipulated by others. You are less reactive. You are grounded. A silent person also benefits from the element of surprise. Because they don't reveal their every thought, people underestimate what they know. They assume silence equals ignorance. This is a mistake many make to their own disadvantage. While others are busy trying to impress, the silent person is watching, gathering information, waiting for the moment when it is time to act. When that moment comes, their actions are often precise and effective because they have been preparing quietly all along. They don't have to scramble for answers or second guess themselves because they have already seen what they needed to see. They have already understood what others overlooked. Silence gives a person freedom. Freedom to think without interference. Freedom to choose their words carefully. And to respond only when it feels right. This freedom makes their understanding even deeper because it is not filtered through the expectations and noise of others. It is their own. It is unclouded. It is pure. And because of that is power. There's also a humility in silence that fosters understanding. When you are silent, you acknowledge that you don't have all the answers, that you don't need to dominate every conversation. Its humility opens you up to learning. It allows you to see the value in other people's perspectives. You can gather wisdom from unexpected sources because you are not too busy proving how much you already know. A silent person is often a lifelong student of life. Always watching, always learning. This is why they often understand things that others cannot. Silent people also see the patterns of human behavior. They notice how people repeat the same mistakes, how emotions drive decisions, how fear disguises itself as aggression. They recognize that most people are not aware of why they do what they do. This insight creates compassion rather than judgment. Because when you truly see people, when you understand their hidden struggles, you are less likely to condemn them. You can respond with kindness and wisdom instead of irritation or anger. This emotional intelligence is another gift of silence. In professional environments, the silent person is often the one who spots risks and opportunities before anyone else. While meetings are filled with debates and interruptions, They are taking mental notes. They see which ideas have merit and which are based on ego. They notice the unspoken tensions in the team. They understand what is really driving decisions. This makes them invaluable advisors and leaders, because when it's time to decide, they can draw from a deeper well of awareness. They have not been distracted by the noise. They have stayed focused on the truth. A silent person understands the art of timing. They know when to stay quiet and when to speak. This discernment is what makes their communication effective, because their silence is not passive. It is strategic. They are waiting for the right moment, the right words, the right opportunity to create impact. When they do step forward, it feels deliberate and necessary. Their contribution feels earned, not forced. This makes people respect them, trust them, and pay attention to them in ways that constant talking never could. Silence is not about absence. It is about presence. A silent person is fully present in the moment, not distracted by their own need to be heard. This presence gives them access to understanding that others miss. It allows them to connect dots that don't appear to those who are only half listening. It helps them see the world as it truly is in all its complexity and nuance. And that is why a silent person often sees and understands more than anyone realizes. Silence can be a tool to control the narrative and maintain inner strength. In a world that thrives on reaction and thrives on getting a rise out of you, there's something immensely powerful about choosing not to respond immediately. When you stay silent, you remove the ammunition people hope to use against you. You leave them with their assumptions, their projections, and their confusion. That alone shifts the dynamic in your favor. Because when you do not reveal everything you feel or think, you hold the cards. You become the one who decides when and how the story will unfold. When someone expects a reaction and you give them none, they start to question themselves. They wonder if they've said something wrong or if you've seen something they missed. They wonder if your silence means disagreement or agreement, approval or condemnation. This uncertainty makes them cautious. It keeps them off balance while you remain grounded. This is one way silence controls the narrative. Instead of letting others dictate the pace of communication or the meaning of an interaction, you set the tone simply by not allowing them access to your inner world too soon. Silence also allows you to maintain your dignity. In heated situations, people often say things they regret later. They let anger or insecurity drive their words. And once those words are spoken, they can't be taken back. Silence protects you from this impulse. It gives you the time and space to decide whether a response is necessary or whether the best response is to say nothing at all. This ability to pause, to withhold immediate reaction, is a demonstration of self-control, and self-control is the heart of inner strength. When you can keep your composure while everything around you demands a reaction, you prove to yourself and to everyone else that you are not easily shaken. There is also something commanding about a person who doesn't feel the need to explain themselves constantly. Explanations often give away too much. Your insecurities, your desire to be understood, your need to be validated. Silence, on the other hand, suggests that you are secure enough in who you are and what you know that you don't have to prove it to anyone. That quiet certainty is magnetic. People are drawn to it because it's rare. In a culture where oversharing has become the norm, restraint feels almost revolutionary. Using silence as a tool to control the narrative also allows you to study the people around you. When you don't immediately react, you get to see how others fill the space. You watch what they reveal when they feel uncomfortable with your quiet. You notice how they interpret your lack of response. Sometimes they expose their own motives just to break the tension. Other times they start revealing details they wouldn't have shared if you had jumped in with your opinion. In this way, your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting people back to themselves. You learn more by saying less. Silence is also a way to let the truth surface. When arguments are heated and everyone is talking over each other, the truth gets buried under emotion and noise. But when you step back and stop contributing to the chaos, clarity eventually rises to the top. People begin to hear themselves, and they begin to see how their words land. They have to reckon with their own behavior instead of being distracted by your reaction to it. This is how silence not only protects your inner strength, but also restores order to the situation itself. In negotiations, silence is an indispensable asset. When you make a point and then say nothing, you put pressure on the other side to fill the gap. That pressure often leads them to reveal concession, doubts, or vulnerabilities they might have kept hidden if you had kept talking. The silence is uncomfortable for most people. They rush to fill it, and in doing so, they surrender information. If you can train yourself to be at ease with that quiet space, you will always have the advantage. You will always be in a position of strength because you are not ruled by the compulsion to respond. Silence also communicates confidence. It says, I am not desperate for your approval. I am not afraid of what you think. I am comfortable with my own thoughts. This is especially powerful in the situations where others expect you to justify yourself. When you remain silent, you refuse to play by their rules. You refuse to be pulled into an argument or a performance. Instead, you hold your position. You let your presence speak for itself. This is how silence becomes a declaration of inner power. When you use silence intentionally, you can shape how others perceive you. You can appear more thoughtful, more discerning, more trustworthy. People will assume that if you are not quick to speak, you must be carefully considering what you will say. This perception alone gives weight to your words when you finally do choose to share. And because you haven't diluted your message with constant commentary, your words have impact. They land with force because they are rare and deliberate. Silence is also protective. In times of stress or crisis, when emotions are high and stakes are higher, silence can be a way to hold yourself steady. It is a shelter you build around your mind and your heart. In that shelter, you can breathe, think, and decide who you want to be in that moment. You don't have to give in to pressure or fear. You don't have to meet aggression with aggression. You can simply stand still. And in that stillness, you find your strength again. This is why silence is never just the absence of sound. It is the presence of something deeper, awareness, intention, discipline. It is a force that stabilizes you from the inside out. When everything around you is moving too fast, when people are shouting for your attention, when opinions are flying like arrows, silence is your shield. It is your way of saying, I will not be moved until I am ready. This message is understood, even if unspoken. It shifts the balance of power in any situation. When you look at history, you see that many of the most respected leaders knew the value of silence. They understood that words could inspire, but silence could unsettle, could challenge, could compel reflection in ways that speaking never could. They knew that when you are silent, you force people to think more deeply about what you represent. You create space for them to question their assumptions, to confront their own thoughts and biases. That is real influence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Inner strength is built through the discipline of not reacting to every provocation. It grows when you learn to sit with your feelings instead of spilling them out for everyone to see. Silence teaches you to be comfortable with yourself, to trust your own judgment, to value your own perspective above the noise of others. It shows you that you don't have to be drawn into every conflict or conversation. You have the power to choose when to engage and when to let things pass. When you practice using silence as a tool, you will notice how much more energy you conserve. You will see how much clearer your thoughts become. You will realize that you don't have to exhaust yourself trying to convince people of your worth or your perspective. Silence proves your confidence without needing validation. It shows that you are not dependent on anyone else's approval to feel strong or secure. This kind of strength is unshakable because it doesn't rely on external circumstances. It comes from within. It is yours alone. When you learn to use silence to control the narrative, you find that you are no longer a passive participant in your own story. You are the author, deciding what gets shared and what remains private. You are the editor, removing the distractions and focusing only on what matters. You are the protector, guarding your energy and your peace. Silence allows you to control the pace of interactions. When you don't immediately respond, you give yourself the luxury of time to reflect, to process, to decide. You are not rushed by anyone else's urgency. You are not forced into decisions or statements you might regret. You are anchored in your own sense of timing, and this is one of the most powerful positions you can occupy. Because when you are in control of your responses, you are in control of your life. When silence breaks, it can change everything with unstoppable force. For a long time, silence can feel like nothing is happening, like the quiet is just empty space waiting to be filled. But underneath that stillness, something is always building. Thoughts are forming. Convictions are hardening. A sense of clarity is emerging that doesn't need validation from the noise around it. Silence isn't passive. It is preparation. It is the gathering of energy and resolve. It is the careful, deliberate choice to hold back until the moment is right. And when that moment arrives, when the silence finally gives way to action or words, the impact is often far greater than any amount of constant talking or shouting could ever achieve. Silence can be like the deep breath before a powerful declaration. It is the pause that makes people lean in, that forces them to pay attention. While others have been busy making their voices heard, the silent person has been observing, studying, deciding what truly matters. When they finally speak, there is nothing accidental about it. Every word has been weighed. Every thought has been tested. That is why when silence ends, the words that follow can shake people out of complacency. They can cut through confusion and distraction because they come from a place of conviction, not impulse. People often mistake silence for weakness or disengagement, but they fail to understand that silence can be the most intentional act of strength. It is a refusal to be provoked or hurried. It is the discipline to wait for the right time instead of reacting to every situation as it happens. This patience becomes a kind of stored power. It grows quietly in the background, unnoticed by those who believe only in the force of volume and immediacy. But when the silent person finally chooses to speak or act, that stored power is released all at once. Because no one expected it, because everyone underestimated it, changes everything. There are countless examples of this in everyday life. In meetings, the person who has said little all along can suddenly speak up and redirect the entire conversation. Their contribution feels more meaningful precisely because it was held back. In relationships, someone who has tolerated disrespect or indifference in silence can one day decide they've had enough. Their quiet departure carries more weight than any argument could have. The sudden ending of their silence forces everyone to see the truth they were trying to ignore. It is impossible to pretend any longer that nothing was wrong. The power of that moment comes from the long period of stillness that preceded it. Silence can also build suspense and anticipation. When you are quiet, people start to wonder what you think. They create their own stories to fill the gap. They imagine reasons for your quiet. They question themselves. This uncertainty gives you an advantage because it makes people pay attention to your next move. They are waiting. They are curious. And when you finally break that silence, your words or actions carry a significance they wouldn't have if you had been speaking all along. You have their full attention because you did not squander it on noise. When silence breaks, it can feel like a dam bursting. The pressure that has been building behind the calm is released in a rush that no one can stop. The energy that was held back becomes unstoppable. This is why revolutions often begin quietly. For a long time, people endure in silence. They watch, they wait, they gather strength. And then seemingly overnight, everything changes. What was once a quiet, contained frustration becomes an undeniable force. The same thing happens in smaller ways in our personal lives. The person who has been silent about their dreams finally declares them and takes action. The person who has been silent about their boundaries finally enforces them. And in that moment, nothing can stand in their way because the power has been building for so long. There is also something profoundly authentic about the words that break silence. They have been shaped by reflection, not by ego. They come from a place of deep truth, not from the need to be seen or heard. This is why they resonate. This is why they move people. When someone breaks their silence to tell their story, to share their pain, to declare their purpose, the impact is transformational. It inspires others to find their own voice. It challenges the status quo. It creates ripples that spread far beyond the moment itself. In conflict, breaking silence can be the most powerful move of all. While others have been arguing and defending themselves, your choice to remain silent demonstrates control. When you finally do speak, the contrast between your quiet strength and their frantic energy becomes undeniable. Your words stand out as measured and thoughtful. They become the words everyone remembers, the ones that shift the entire dynamic. This is why great negotiators and leaders understand the value of silence. They use it to create contrast. They use it to give their message gravity. They understand that timing is everything and that breaking silence at the right moment is more persuasive than any amount of constant persuasion. Silence can also be a sanctuary where resilience is built. When you are quiet, you have space to heal, to grow, to become stronger without interference. You are not forced to explain yourself before you are ready. You are not obligated to share your process with anyone. In that protected space, you find your own answers. You reconnect with your own intuition. And when you finally emerge from that silence, you are not the same person who ended it. You are clearer. You are stronger. You are ready to act with conviction. When you break that silence, the people around you can feel the difference. They sense that your words are backed by something unshakable. They recognize that you have not come to this moment lightly. You have prepared. You have decided. And there is nothing they can say to diminish the authenticity of what you are expressing. This is why when silence breaks, it is often a turning point. It is the moment when the truth can no longer be denied, when the real story begins, when momentum shifts. Breaking silence also requires courage. It is much easier to keep things hidden, to remain in the safety of your own thoughts. But there comes a point when staying silent becomes more painful than speaking, when the need to express what is true becomes stronger than the fear of being judged or misunderstood. That is when silence ends. And when it does, it carries a force that nothing can contain, because it comes from the deepest place in you, the place where your convictions, your hopes, and your boundaries all converge. When you finally speak up after a long silence, you are not just sharing information. You are declaring something about yourself, that you will no longer be invisible, that your perspective matters, that your experience is valid. You are reclaiming your place in the world. This declaration has the power to transform not only your own life, but also the lives of those who hear it. It gives permission to others to do the same. It shows them that silence can be strength, but it can also be a stage for a powerful emergence. This is why the quiet before the storm is so significant. It is not empty. It is not passive. It is the moment when everything is aligning, when all the scattered thoughts and feelings are coming together into something clear and unstoppable. The breaking of that silence is the culmination of all that preparation, all that reflection. It is the release of everything you have been carrying. And because it has been held back for so long, it arrives with a force that no one can ignore. The moment silence ends is often the moment transformation begins. It is the point when hidden truths are spoken, when hidden strengths are revealed, when hidden dreams are finally given life. And in that moment, everything changes, not because you made noise for the sake of it, but because you waited until you had something worth saying, something that could no longer remain unspoken. This is why silence is never empty. It is full of potential. And when it breaks, that potential is set free. When silence finally gives way to words or action, it reveals the depth of everything that was growing unseen: conviction, clarity, and an unshakable sense of purpose. Silence is not weakness or absence. It is a deliberate choice to pause, to watch, to gather strength until the right moment arrives. And when that moment comes, the quiet becomes a force no one can ignore. It transforms doubt into certainty, hesitation into momentum, and invisible strength into undeniable impact. In a world obsessed with noise, it is often the ones who respect the power of silence who end up shaping the narrative and commanding the deepest respect.